And a good evening to everybody, and welcome to the wrap-up show of the Golden Globes. No matter where you're going to be watching this, it is 8:15 here in the West, 11:15 in the East, and as I said, this is the 2024 Golden Globes wrap-up show. I'm joined by Matthew Anderson, who's going to be coming back in a couple minutes, and I was just it was an interesting evening, and he and I both got some, and I mean, some of them were very predictable. And yeah, so let's bring Matthew in to talk. And first and foremost, welcome again. And
Hello.
so before we get started, I'm just gonna I want to get you didn't watch the Globes, so
No,
you didn't see the televised mess
no, I
that
didn't watch the
was.
skit show. I haven't seen a Golden Globes ceremony all the way through since 1917, and I did that because, well, I did it somewhat drunk. I had like a couple of shots in between, and I only did that
You needed
because
shots for this. You really did.
well, yeah. I if I'd watched this, I'd be like, okay, where's the vodka? I need some alcohol.
How are you, Dadpool? Yeah. So, absolutely, this was a, I, I was saying to you off air. I'll say it for our viewers here. You can tell by a monologue how a show is going to go, especially if somebody is experienced and they've done televised award shows before. You know what's going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell right from the get-go, when he says, oh, well, I wrote, you're laughing at the couple of things that got me immediately were, well, I wrote most of this material and that's the stuff you're laughing at. And the other comment was, well, I got this gig 10 days ago. What do you want? Shut up. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And then on top of all that, you had comments and jokes that he thought landed. And why, I don't know. But, there was a comment about the Barbie. And the immediate thing was to cut to Greta Gerwig, right? And she was not happy. You could just tell by the look on her face. And Twitter, so I didn't tweet that much. I tweeted a couple of little things out during the show. But he was getting roasted. Roasted. And this is why he got the Globes instead of the Oscars, okay? He will. My guess is he will not be invited back. And yeah, there were a couple of cute little memes, like Pedro Pascal's thing, but this was an out and out disaster.
Yeah, and
CBS couldn't. They were. This is the one thing that CBS just didn't want.
Well, also I was going to say the meme is going around about Cooper's face. I mean, look, I don't know how he's feeling. We can't really.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Think about what happened, But anyways, yeah, no, I really can't speak of anything on the host other than I'm glad I avoided it. And once I saw those tweets going out, I'm like, dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
You know what I did the entire time though was I ended up going. I ended up listening to shout out to Matt Neglia here.
And by the way, he had great coverage. I was following him on Twitter, and he's fantastic. Go ahead.
But no, I sent him. I gotta turn my phone off. I'm sorry. I'm getting
So
anyways, I'm sorry. So I was as the whole shit show was going on, I was finishing up the latest episode of the Next Best Picture podcast, and they were talking about predictions and such. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm better listening to something that might be dated, like in terms of like predictions in like 5 minutes than watch your shit show, Golden Globes. So anyways,
it was just, and I forgot. They said it was to their credit, it ended on time, luckily. But at the same time, it was 3 hours.
It's about as long as Oppenheimer.
Well, funny enough,
and more boring than Oppenheimer.
Well, the commercials. What blew my mind was, and I promise we'll get into the winners
we'll
here in just a couple of minutes. But what blew my mind is you had like one set of group of hosts, do like 2 or 3 awards, and I'm like, huh? And the other thing that threw me off, and you didn't watch the show, but anybody that watched the show knows this. It's not like so the main camera, okay, or camera A, which was right in the center,
Yeah.
okay, the one that when the person is speaking is going, they reversed it, so they had the cameras on the side, so they had the people stand onto the side. So the audience, they would be looking out at the audience. I'm like, we don't need to see them.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And it just shows you how they really fumbled the ball on so many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
But that I can't wait to see how badly this guy gets roasted tomorrow or on Twitter after this. But yeah, he will not be invited back. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
do
he
it
probably
if I were
won't.
them. But anyways,
if anything, it makes me think, maybe Jimmy Kimmel isn't that bad of a host as we
well, no,
all thought.
when you hosted, when you hosted a couple of times in the biggest show in the Oscars, it's not that big of a thing. Like the first time it may be okay trying to get you, but when you do it 2 and 3 times and have hosts like Billy Crystal, Whoopi Goldberg, Jimmy Kimmel, they can handle it. They can deal with it. But you could tell this guy was he got the gig 10 days ago, for crying out loud. What do you want? Okay, so enough about that. So the big winner of the night. Big winner of the night was Oppenheimer. Let's not call a spade a spade.
What?
Okay. I know. Breaking news.
Oppenheimer did really well.
I know.
I thought Past Lives was going to win it.
Yeah. Went in there with 9 nominations or 8 nominations, walked out with 5 Golden Globes.
Yeah.
And they were big Golden Globes too.
Mm-hmm.
They were big ones too. So let's
they're about as big as the bomb.
Yeah. So let's touch upon one of the big ones right off the top.
Yes.
Murphy. So I know you kind of wanted to save this, but this one, we talked about this on the pre-show. Mm-hmm. You and I both agreed this was a 2-horse race.
Yes,
no doubt.
Now we should also point out that Cillian Murphy won the drama category, not the comedy musical category, as that was a bit predictable. But as far as Cillian Murphy winning for Globes, I understand that Cooper definitely needed this win for sure, and it really was vital for him to win. But I keep remembering 2 things. One, and I've also had to double check too, now that the industry, or not industry, but like the Golden Globe, the Golden Globes people aren't what they used to be last year or even the last 2 years, just because they've now expanded. They've gone more international with their voters. But at the end of the day, they're still voted on by journalists. And I even had to source a couple of people, and even one who did have someone who was in the Golden Globes voting committee tell me, no one is no one here is like an Oscar voter. They're just journalists. That's it. So that's the first thing we need to keep in mind. And 2, I keep getting flashes of what happened with Austin Butler. So when they announced Cillian Murphy won the Golden Globe here, I remember thinking back, remember what happened with Austin Butler? Yes, it was a completely different situation with what happened with Golden Globes weren't going to give Frasier the award because of what they had done. But at the same time, though, I think it definitely showed that it isn't, this isn't going to be an easy type of win for Cooper to get, so to speak. I still think it's possible for him to win because BAFTA and particularly SAG are going to be a lot more closer with voters. And also, too, last year, I'm not sure about, well, actually, I think you had predicted her to win. Angela Bassett only won Golden Globe and Critics' Choice. And then BAFTA and SAG went with different winners. And who won at the end? Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's going to be Cillian Murphy all the way yet. I need to see what the industry goes for.
This is just a small stepping stone in the grand scheme of things. We have so many other precursors to come. It's not funny. And
the other note I just want to bring up real quick while we're at it is I heard from the same source I had who had a professor who was a Golden Globe voter had said apparently Netflix had actually sent out May-December screeners first, and Maestro was kind of late in the game, whereas Oppenheimer had been screening for voters like all throughout the year. I mean, the fact that it came out since July, it's like, okay, well, that's going to be easily seen the most. So And I think that was also kind of an issue for The Whale as well last year, was it wasn't screened enough for Golden Globe voters to go for, even though I don't think Fraser was ever going to win that prize. So we'll have to see what happens with the awards. But I think if nothing else, this has proven to me tonight that it is a 2-horse race. And I really think Oppenheimer can truly take home the Best Picture prize. But we'll get more into that later.
Yeah, no, I think that I totally agreed with you on that, and just it was a 2-horse race between Cooper and Murphy, and I wasn't. Look, I'm not mad Murphy won. Okay,
Now,
I want to see Cooper just as much as you and just as much as everybody else, but in the grand scheme of things, I know that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
So that being said, that was one of the big ones. Okay, we had, of course, best original score. Okay, Ludwig ended up winning, which we both
no surprise.
Not a surprise there. The other great speech I thought for the night was Christopher Nolan. Let's talk about Christopher Nolan for a minute. I mean, I when they announced his name, I'm like, this isn't a shock, but I thought his speech was really telling. And go ahead.
I got to admit, seeing someone who has been wanting to see him win an Oscar since Inception, because I thought that's like, if they were ever given him an Academy Award for something, Inception would have been the one I would have given personally. But it was nice to see that, him doing the Golden Globe, him finally getting the Golden Globe, which, yes, I understand, no Oscar voting overlap for sure. But I think the tea leaves are there to show that Nolan is likely to sweep the precursors. He's probably going to win DGA at the Oscar, the DGA award coming up, assuming he is nominated, which actually, as of this recording, DGA nominees aren't even announced yet. And it was really nice to see him pay tribute to Heath Ledger, and even mentioning the fact that, like, at the corner of his eye, he saw Robert Downey Jr. giving him a look of genuine support. And that was nice, because I completely forgot that when Heath Ledger had won the Golden Globe for The Dark Knight, Nolan had to accept it on his behalf, and they didn't have someone like Gary Oldman or any of his family members to accept it, and Downey was there. He was nominated for Tropic Thunder. So it's a well-deserved win, and I truly think this will be one of the few wins from tonight that I think will translate to the Oscar.
I agree with you. I mean, I just think, I think it was genuine. It's like the last time I was up here, I was accepting a Golden Globe for Heath Ledger 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think I was ever going to get back up here.
Yeah.
And, now I'm here, and, it's come full circle to a certain extent. And the thing about it was he was genuine in what he was saying.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's made a great number of films since. And, this is, everybody can argue about, what's his best film or whatever, but it was just a genuine type of thing. And that was the cool thing to see. So,
and the other thing too, to add to it, as we already said in the, nomination prediction video, is it really was timing that really helped him get the Oscar. Cause I think if he were in a really competitive year, we saw that with Shape of Water winning the Best Director prize here and then going on to win the Oscar. I think that's what's going to help Nolan get the Academy Award, is that because of the strikes, because of the fact that it was one of 2 movies that was the most talked about, or at least one of the most talked about movies since the summer. And even someone like general voters that I thought would be turned off by this were actually surprisingly engaged with it. Even I have to admit, watching the movie again, like, I know I'm repeating myself, but the one point I'll make, and then we can move on to something else if you like. But I'm just really impressed with how Nolan directed the movie, because it just, at times, it didn't really feel like a Christopher Nolan film that I had seen. Like, it really did feel like he was actually trying to challenge himself creatively and artistically as a director and as a storyteller. And I was really impressed with what he did with this film. So if he does win the Oscar for this, which he probably will, it'll be deserved. So congrats.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to another actor that, I think we both agreed Paul Giamatti. I mean, this
Yeah.
wasn't a shock.
It
A lot of these weren't like, oh my god. I didn't see any major, maybe one or two with like Anatomy of a Fall, but
we'll get to that in a
those
minute.
we'll get to that in a minute. But this was not a shock.
So Giamatti winning here only showed me two things. One, when I saw the movie, this felt like the kind of film that the Golden Globes would give the award to, because when you watch that performance, he is a curmudgeon professor, and he's being thrown a lot of like really good one-liners. Like he talks to he tells the dean or the head of the school that he was the equivalent of like penis breath so I thought that was funny. And there was a couple of other moments throughout that he's given like really good scenes throughout the film, and he's very hilarious too. But yeah, it definitely did seem like a Golden Globe type winner to go for. And I think what also helped his chances, and we'll get to another acting category here in a minute, but I think what helped his chances of winning over someone like Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction is The Holdovers is now on Peacock, and it's been on there since I think like the end of December. And I find it interesting that they decided to drop that a couple days before the new year came in, rather than having it stay in theaters that long. But if anything, it just showed like, okay, now voters actually have an opportunity to see this at home. They don't have to go out to the theater like American Fiction is still doing at the moment, I think. I mean, there's sent screeners and such, but like it's, if it's more widely seen, then that'll help your chances. I mean, hell, it helped Oppenheimer's chances, to be honest. So
yeah, I think that once again, not a shock, and I think that that's going to be a something to keep in mind as we move forward. So from going from one of the major winners in Oppenheimer and Giamatti, let's talk about somebody that led it. Barbie at 9.
yeah,
And walks away with 1.
Yeah, one competitive win because the box office thing does not count.
1.
So my theory, and go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So my theory as to why I think Barbie did not hit well with the Golden Globe voters. First off, it is such a populist film that when you look at the film, it very much speaks to a wider, demographic, especially for female audience. And I think we said this off air or maybe on air, I can't remember, but I thought the film was fine. Like, it's obviously not made for me, but when I came out of it, I'm like, yeah, that was like a nice time, enjoyable. And you know what? If someone were to tell me on the street, like, oh, it's my favorite film of the year, it's like, oh, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen, I'm like, you know what? More power to you. That's great. I think we should treat, even if we're on the negative side of things, I think we should at least be like, you know what? That's your movie. I'm not going to dish you on it or talk shit about it, but whatever. But I think what also hurt its chances was, again, just how Oppenheimer just seemed like it was again, not that Oppenheimer was in any like categories that Barbie was in. I mean, I actually come to think of it, I think Barbie and Oppenheimer are only competitive in together in director and cinematic achievement, I think, and maybe screenplay. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just it did show to me, as Josh Parham pointed out on Twitter, who I follow along, and maybe you should too if you're not doing so. He mentioned how it's fascinating how Barbie is collecting all these nominations, but it's struggling to get these above the line win categories. And I'm starting to think that might be the case for the Oscars, where it's not going to overperform on nomination morning. Hell, I could actually see a world where this only wins song, and dare I say it, I think Greta Gerwig might miss director, because when you look at how, and I think we talked about this off air too. What are you doing? What are you just ducking?
No. I'm just making sure my mic's on.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you were like, oh no, the plates are flying at you.
Yeah.
No. So my reason as to why I think Barbie may not get in for director is because that is such a populist film. And we've seen the last 5 years alone that the director's branch has gotten a lot more international. Like, the voters overall has gotten more international, but in particular with directors. And I think that might have a lot of these like pretentious, artsy kind of directors voters be like, do we want to give a populist film like Barbie a director nomination when we probably would want to go for someone like Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest, Justin Triet for Anatomy of a Fall? It's like they have all of these like artsy international picks that they could go for. Whereas, and even something like Dune and A Star is Born, they were somewhat populist picks and they missed the director lineup. Hell, even Inception was such a even though like Dune, it's a technical achievement, it missed the director's lineup because it was such a populist choice. So I really wouldn't be surprised if Gerwig gets snubbed for director on the Oscar morning in a few weeks or whenever the Oscar nominations are out. And I really think people need to realize this might actually happen. She could miss director. It'll still get in for Best Picture. It'll get in for adapted screenplay. It's probably going to win song for What Was I Made For? And I still can't believe Billie Eilish is about to win her second Oscar. But I just think that people need to brace themselves for Barbie to underperform somewhat. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's a huge film. It did all this money, but in the grand scheme of things, is it worth? And once again, it could get all these nominations, and this is what I was talking about on the previous show. Is we've seen films get all these nominations, and whether it's director or picture or actress or whatever, and then fall short.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then and by the way, just for the record, just because it gets all these nominations and doesn't win doesn't make it a bad movie.
No.
Okay, no, but I want to be crystal clear about that because there is a contingent out there, not you.
No, I know.
There is a contingent out there that says, "Oh, well, it didn't win." So, because the problem in today's Hollywood is, and I'm starting to get away from this, is that we monetize everything.
Yeah.
We put a number to it. So just because something like this wins 6 Oscars and this only wins one, guess what? This is a better film. That's not necessarily true. That one could be Best Picture. I mean, you take a look at. I'm just going to throw a movie out there. Take a look at a movie like Spotlight. That movie only won 2 Oscars,
and it made sense looking. Yeah, and screenplay.
Best screenplay. Yeah, that's it. And it's phenomenal. By the way, if you actually want to go back and check out, that was January's Perfect Movie. Okay, I'm starting back up the Perfect Movie series. That was January's Perfect Movie. I think, and I know it's a stretch, film being subjective, call it what it is, I think it's a perfect movie. I do. That all being said, it only won 2 Oscars.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing, the other thing I was going to say too is that we've also seen. I mean, hell, just open the goddamn book of the last decade alone of films that have won Oscars that were undeserved. And
Green Book.
Green Book, yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody.
I know that's kind of going back away, but
But yeah, it's like awards don't mean shit in terms of the quality of the movie. They just what they are is they just vote on what they think is the quote unquote best of the year or whatever. I mean, even most of the lead actor wins that we've got in the last couple
years
have been pretty
Raleigh Malek.
Yikes. Yeah, it's yikes, that was not a good win.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
So anyways.
Yeah, so let's talk about a film you brought up, screenplay, earlier. Let's bring up Anatomy of a Fall.
Okay.
Now, were you kind of, I know I was waiting. I kind of was, were you surprised when you heard this? And what kind of ramifications, and I know we're still early in the game, what kind of ramifications could this have down the road?
So here's the thing. I want to eat some crow today after it won not just international film, but screenplay. And I say that because I was under the impression the moment I saw this movie that there was no way in hell this was going to get nominated for Best Picture, especially when France didn't submit it for the Oscars, because that's why it's not eligible for the international film category. And I think if it had been submitted, I think it probably could have won the Oscar, despite how much more English there is than French and German, I believe. So I think today showed me that Anatomy of a Fall has the chance to actually get in for a Best Picture nomination. And I'll go even a step further. I think it can win original screenplay. And I say that because we are now going to be in, without WGA relying on nominations and winners, we are going to have to rely on what, like the tea leaves of what wins the Critics' Choice Award, and in particular, what wins BAFTA. Because right now we don't know what the BAFTA nominations are, so we'll find out like maybe a week or so. But I think it's going to be very telling to know what the Academy will be going for, and if this does win the BAFTA prize, even just the Golden Globe award award it already has, I still think it has a shot at winning original screenplay for the lineup. And I didn't think that was even possible until tonight. It's funny though that we were talking about this movie though, because I had predicted the other original screenplay contender, Past Lives, but I'm starting to see that Past Lives actually may not win screenplay at the Oscars, but we'll find out. But I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a 3-horse race for original screenplay, because for all we know, Critics' Choice and BAFTA, they might go with different winners. Critics' Choice is, could go with Past Lives, or maybe BAFTA goes with The Holdovers. We don't really know what has a shot at winning the Academy Award. And I will say the one thing I will say is that if either Past Lives or Holdovers wins just the BAFTA prize alone and doesn't win Critics' Choice, I don't think that we can actually predict Holdovers to win screenplay, or like whatever's the one of the two that wins just BAFTA, just because you'd have to go all the way back to Talk to Her, which was the last film to win just BAFTA and translate to an original screenplay Oscar win. Because films like The Favorite and Licorice Pizza recently, they only won just BAFTA and they couldn't get that Oscar win. So I really think we need to keep an eye out on the possibility that Anatomy of a Fall might win original screenplay at the Oscar. And if it does, I'm okay with it. If nothing else, it made me throw on 50 Cent's Pimp, which was also apparently in Expendables 4.
One of my 10 worst movies of
but you'll be happy to know that at least this one was used in a very a more like clever way, I guess. So
so let's go to another movie that did fairly well and ended up winning a couple of awards. Not shocking, Poor Things. So I mean, Emma Stone ended up winning for Best Actress.
Yep.
And that
comedy musical.
Yep. So that was well deserved. And so I thought it ended up winning. Ended up winning 2, I think.
Just lead actress and Best Picture for comedy musical.
So I mean, it did what I think, it was going to.
I swear to God, like when I was predicting this for Best Picture at the Golden Globes, I could swear, like I don't know if anyone actually like read my predictions in time, but I could feel this like seething rage from people being like, Matt's an idiot. Why is he predicting Poor Things? Barbie is clearly going to sweep all the goddamn awards at Globes. And the moment it won the Golden Globe prize for picture, I'm like, wow, I was right. And really the only reason why I predicted Poor Things outside of the international branch for the Golden Globe voters themselves appealing to more something like this, which also might be a sign to me thinking Barbie might underperform. But the other thing about it was I took a record stat check on Golden Globe film winners for comedy musical. And since The Martian, every film that has won the Golden Globe comedy musical category since The Martian has gone on to win an acting prize somewhere at the Globes. And I thought that was an interesting stat to look at, and it hadn't been broken yet. I'm like, I wonder if it could break this year, but just to be on the safe side, I'll predict Poor Things to win here. But yeah, no, so I think Emma Stone was great, and and also she had the curse as well, which is why she won the Golden
she's
Globe.
On fire. I mean, so and that this is This is her second. She won for La La Land, I imagine. Yes.
She did. Yes.
Yeah. So this is her second Golden Globe. So, you know, that and I think that's a thing. And so the other actress and the other award, which was the last award of the night, was Lily Gladstone. Once again, not a shock. I think when actors take risks and they go out of their comfort zone, like a film like Poor Things or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, that I think that it really shows what kind of range they have, and it shows what kind of actress or actor they can be. And it's one thing to put on a suit, okay, a prosthetic suit, and I'm not saying that that's not difficult, but when you go out of your and by the way, it's a story too. I'm not saying that it's just the actress or actor, but when you go out of your way and you encounter a story that is different and challenges you, and that's what you want as an actor or an actress. You want to be challenged. This kind of role, while Gladstone, excuse me, while I think Gladstone's still the favorite, this is definitely going to raise some eyebrows and be like, oh wow,
So, yeah, I will say, if Gladstone had been in supporting, or if that film hadn't come out at all this year, I think Emma Stone could have easily won her second Oscar. But now that Gladstone is in lead actress, I think she's going to give really good competition. Like, I know you said you only saw an hour of the film, but I really think Gladstone is going to win the Oscar for this.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt.
Because I think
the narrative is there.
Yeah, the narrative is there, and I think we might have said this even on air. I can't remember because the last 3 hours have been kind of a blur. Either on air or off air, that I think voters would. Some of the older Academy members might be turned off by Poor Things 15 to 10, 15 minutes into the movie, and they might want to switch it off. And while Killers of the Flower Moon is 3.5 hours long, which is like 30 minutes longer than Oppenheimer, I think there will be a more incentive to want to vote for Gladstone, even though it is a bit depressing. It is dark, but that whole idea of let's give Gladstone an opportunity at the circle to get that damn award and join the club. So, and I think it's possible that she could. She's probably going to beat Emma Stone, if I'm being honest, at the Oscars. But I do want to say the award side of me wants to be like, yeah, we'll see what happens. Kind of like how I am with lead actor this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, well, lead actor is always one of those roles. Lead actor and lead actress are always one of those. Those are the two roles every single year that are difficult because you always have those two thoroughbreds, okay? Those two standout performances that you'd be happy with either one winning. You'd be happy if Murphy won, and you'd be happy if Cooper won. Just like you'd be happy if Gladwell would won or Emma Stone won. They're both, and then you have that third. So, last year was Colin Farrell with. I'm blanking on the film, but you had Colin Farrell. You had a couple. You always have that second tier gal actor or actress. They're both in that top tier. And the other, speaking of supporting actress, she was a lock all the way. I don't think that this was actually the first award of the night. I don't think that. I think she's probably. I hate to use the word favorite because there are some categories that are basically runaways. I think this is probably the runaway category.
Yeah. Especially with her film, like I said, with the holdovers, her film is being seen the most outside of Oppenheimer. And I think if they want to give the holdovers something, because there is passion for the holdovers, there's clear passion for the acting and the writing. But I think if they want to send this home with something, and they usually do this, typically in years, except for last year, they typically give the supporting actress win as like the lone win for the film. They're like, we got to send it home with something. Here you go. They did that with Yoo Jung-yoon for Minari. They did it with Ariana DeBose for West Side Story. Even with Laura Dern for Marriage Story was another one where it's like, yep, okay, got it. So we'll I think she's probably gonna take the award, and she probably could sweep. The one thing I did want to point out, I didn't even mention in our nomination reaction to it, or the predictions, I should say. Since if she does win the Spirit Award this year for supporting performance, and goes on to win the Oscar, she would continue the trend that has happened since Penelope Cruz for Vicky Cristina Barcelona, where we've always had a independent Spirit Award acting winner, at least one per year since then, which was like 2008, 2009, translate to an Oscar win. And I've been keeping an eye on Divine J. Randolph since the Spirit Award nominations were announced. I think it's possible for her to win this Oscar.
Yeah. Oh no. I think this is just the beginning. It's going to be a long couple of months for her, and acceptance speeches and getting awards. By the time this award season's over, her mantle is going to be full of awards: Golden Globes, Spirits, BAFTAs, Oscars, runs the whole gamut.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think that but it's always fascinating because we once again it's fascinating because you have a movie like Barbie, for example, going back to Barbie, for example, 8 nominations and 1 win, and everybody was like, "What?"
Yeah.
I was it a good movie, and that's the thing. And I was just talking about that earlier. Just because monetarily makes a ton of money doesn't mean it's necessarily a good movie. And look, I enjoyed Barbie for what it was. I'm not saying it was a bad movie.
No.
I enjoyed the numbers. I enjoyed I loved it. But it's one of those things where, look, I think that if this had come out in any other year, other than the year it came out with Killers of the Flower Moon, because don't forget, Killers of the Flower Moon was pushed back until 2023.
Yeah.
And so
they needed more time to work on the movie too.
Exactly. So if this had come out at a different time, it would have been, I think it would have been Margot's year all day long, twice on Sunday. But because it actually came out the same year, I think people are saying, oh, this is more of and goes back to what I was saying earlier, taking risks. But this is a 3-hour movie. I'm sorry, 3.5. 3.5.
Yeah.
3.5-hour movie. And she's the female lead. That's not easy.
The other thing I wanted to say about Barbie, I completely forgot because it slipped my mind as we were talking about it. It's kind of I don't know why, but it's kind of giving me a bit of vibes of what happened with Jaws, like Dune and Inception and Jaws. It seems like, and maybe Barbie and Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water. It seems like all these movies together in a pool, they're very much like, you're the talk of the town in terms of box office, but you're not the talk of the town of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
And that alone, I think, should be that should be like, okay, we need to keep an eye out for, like I said earlier, like she might miss director, and I wouldn't be shocked at all. Disappointed because they didn't nominate a female director, but wouldn't be shocked.
Right.
And as far as Margot Robbie goes, I never even considered her as a possible winner at the Academy Award or even at these like Golden Globes. I think outside of the whole cinematic achievement thing, Robbie is still yet to win a Golden Globe, whether as a producer or as an actor. But I think it's kind of telling of like Barbie underperforming here is like, maybe that's a sign of what's to come for the Oscars.
Yeah, I mean, and it's gonna be even more telling. When the next awards show happens, whatever that is, whether it's the whether it's the BAFTAs or whatever it is, and if this had come out in
any other year,
if this had come out in any other year, other than the year that this happened, she would have won. There was a good. Okay, let me rephrase that. She would have been the favorite. She would have been the favorite. But because Killers of the Flower Moon came out, and they're like, okay, this is a solid 3.5-hour acting performance.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna, and it has nothing to do with diversity. She was just a better actor.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's the same thing every single year. This is why, just going back to what I just said, that when it comes to films, that you owe acting and actress are always the two hardest to predict because you have two thoroughbreds. You have two fantastic performances. And you could go back year after year and after year and say these are the two. And you'll be happy with either one winning. So I mean, hell, go back to I go back to the Reverend and Steve Jobs. Or hell, you can even go back to King Richard with Will Smith and Andrew Garfield. Look, I wouldn't have been mad. I saw both movies.
Yeah.
Was Will Smith better than Andrew Garfield? It
I
was a more dramatic role.
yeah, I
That's the
still
thing.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I think Barbie came out exactly when it was, because I think it had Barbie not came out, then I don't think Oppenheimer would be on this pedestal that it is now,
no,
especially with the
no,
strikes going
no
on
way,
and such.
no way,
Um,
no way,
yeah,
no way.
I'm sorry. Do we miss any other like major
Oh no,
wins?
I just was touching. Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of other. I
Okay.
mean, we touched upon Emma Stone. We touched
Yeah.
upon Da Vinci Joy Randolph, Killian
Okay.
Murphy, Paul Giamatti. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is about the only other one. We touched upon Ludwig, RDJ. I thought, and he's someone I didn't bring up. I thought RDJ was fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's winning the
obviously he
Oscar.
was he's winning the Oscar.
I
Once
like,
again,
I like besides Gladstone, he's the one I think I'm most confident in doing, because it seems like the last couple of years, especially since Coda, the last 2 years alone, they have given the best picture prize, also winning supporting actor as well. And I find it very telling. And Downey Jr.'s got a narrative. This is his, as we talked about, this is his first, dramatic and serious role that he's doing now that he's done with the Marvel stuff. And this seems like the time that they want to finally reward Robert Downey Jr. for something, and honestly, good for him. But yeah, no, we'll see what happens, how well Oppenheimer does with the awards, because I still don't think lead actor is sewn up. And honestly, like realistically, we shouldn't even say any of these are locks, except for maybe
oh
Nolan.
no,
And score probably, but like that might be it for now. But we'll have to see how these precursors go, because if Cillian Murphy does win all of these other televised prizes, then I think he's probably going to go on to win the Oscar.
yeah,
But we'll see what happens.
yeah. I mean, I think that it's no, you're right about that. I mean, none of these are like absolute 100%, you know, locks. There's just none. But you can tell from a performance right away. Um, you can tell from a performance right away when an actor has it. And look, he's been around the block and everything else. I think I don't know if I've said it to you or I've said it to other people though. Robert Downey Jr. reminds me of Tom Cruise in the simple respect of this. Everybody's seen him as an action star, right? Ethan Hunt for the last 25 years, but he has chops. Tom Cruise has acting chops. I think he's the best. When Tom Cruise is at his best, he's a dramatic actor. The Last Samurai, Born on the 4th of July, Jerry Maguire, Collateral. RDJ does the same thing. Okay, RDJ is a hell of an actor. He has chops. Chaplin, Oppenheimer, Zodiac. He runs the
He's
gamut.
he's really funny in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
I mean,
If you haven't
yeah.
seen
I
that,
mean, hell, he's done Tropic Thunder.
yeah,
So they both can. Ironically, they were both in the same film. But the point is that they both have chops. He's been around the block for so long that when they see somebody now, Grant, and look, this is why he can go out and do a complete disaster like Doolittle and still not take a hit. Okay,
yeah,
but the thing is that he's one of the best actors, and A-list actors, he just doesn't work a lot. And but yeah, I think so. Dad, question: are you going to do a video tomorrow on the Jonathan Majors interview in the
Oh,
morning.
I forgot
I
that's
didn't even
tomorrow.
know he
Jesus.
actually gave an interview, so I'd have to look into that.
Yeah,
Give
we'll
me
we'll talk
time
about that
to,
off air.
yeah, give me some time to look into that, and I'll definitely get back to you. But that being said, he's got chops, and I think
Mhm.
that this is once again, when it comes to supporting actor and supporting actress, I'm not saying any of these are locks, but
Mhm.
you've got it kind of locked up. You've got Divine with the holdovers, and you've got RDJ. Those are the two. If I had to put money down right tonight to say which two, you said you're confident in five. If I had to put money down on it tonight, those are the two actor things I'd be. But RDJ is a hell of an actor.
Mhm.
And I think that people forget that because he's done Iron Man for 15 years. Anyways, that's my rant on that. And I think that let me ask you this. This is an interesting question where I always because the way I look at films is this. We look at movies at least I look at movies, and I don't know if you do, but at least I look at movies in two lights. The here and now and the down the road, the 5 to 10 years.
Mhm.
How do you think Oppenheimer is going to be viewed in 5 to 10 years?
Um, I think it'll do pretty well. Like it's even on a I purposely avoided watching this on the big screen again over the summer because I wanted to show my grandma the film on the big screen here at the house. But also I was like, okay, if I'm gonna watch this like 3 hour movie, I want to watch it. I don't for a movie that long. I usually don't go out to the theaters to see again unless if it's like that, like really strong
I
and that
saw it,
good.
like I said to you off
Um,
air. I saw it three
so
times in theaters in IMAX.
so
So I
yeah,
mean, but
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
So and I will say it also helped too seeing Oppenheimer sort of like put that gap in between from July to December because then it allowed me to sort of process like like the awards potential because honestly when I saw it in theaters going into I'm like okay we'll see if Nolan can win director this time and I finished the movie and I'm thinking to myself I think he can win this, but let's see what happens in December. Like it was almost like, let me get back to you by December because it's always happened like that every year where it's like, I think this could win, but let me get back to you. And then December rolls around, and then boom, like it seems like he's probably going to win the Oscar. And of these like major Golden Globe wins we have, I think that's the one that would be like, okay, that's going to happen. And then we have other races that we didn't even mention, like animated feature. I think there's like a 2 horse race
Yeah,
there
that
with
that was a
Boy the
little.
Heron and
I
Spider
think that
Verse.
might have been the biggest surprise, if that want to call surprises of the night.
Yeah,
Spider Verse not winning. I mean, Mario, I wasn't shocked, but once again, it's still so early in the race that
yeah.
you know. I mean, look,
Oh, you're muted.
yeah, I think that.
Oh,
Let me ask you this: speaking of animation, and I don't know if I've asked you this before. Do you think Across the Spider Verse has a chance to get into Best Picture?
nope. Never believed it. I
Okay.
never believed it because, especially when someone as big of a name as Guillermo del Toro for Pinocchio last year couldn't do it, Spider Verse is not doing it.
Yeah, makes
Um,
sense.
and the you're so good at predicting. Really, a lot of it is because I watch the damn movies for once. I have to suffer through a lot of these like really shitty movies. I had to suffer the other night through Saltburn and watch that, and there were a couple other films I had to watch. The Creator's another one for visual effects, but I also do like a whole Word doc where I
Oh,
just do like a whole chart. I showed
he
I
has.
I showed him a whole. I think it was like when we did this the whole Oscars last year. I
Yep.
showed him like a Word doc and I shared the whole like here's how I do my predictions. And like who's winning like the major I only counted televised stuff because the critics wins can help you get a nomination. It doesn't automatically mean you're gonna win the Oscar though.
Yeah.
Um so
When I
so there's
tell
that.
you, he does breakdowns and spreadsheets and Excel
Yeah,
sheets of
practically.
every single uh, major. I'm talking about BAFTAs, Globes, Oscars. I mean, he's even identified trends. I mean, it's just his prep work. No, and I'm not trying to be. That is the
Boastful,
major
yeah.
thing about this kind of work, and you've noted too. It's the prep work.
Yeah.
Half the work, okay, or 3/4 of the work is doing, as my buddy on Twitter likes to say, doing the work, right? Doing the homework. That's what it is, sitting down and watching movies, doing the spreadsheets. So when you get in front of the camera, you don't look like a buffoon. Be like,
Yeah. And the other thing that helps me too, and this is part of the reason why I was very hesitant in predicting Oppenheimer to even get close to a Best Picture win, was I've gotten the Best Picture category right since Parasite. Every year since then, I've noticed a trend of films that do festival runs of some kind, whether it's we saw South by Southwest with Everything Everywhere All at Once, Sundance with Coda, Nomadland was Venice and TIFF, and then Parasite was Cannes. And having a film premiere do like a festival run of some kind could really help your chances of getting.
But it could also really hurt your chances too.
It can too if you're showing your film too much.
Right.
But I think what's kind of helping Nolan in a weird way is that because of the strike and that there weren't a whole lot of movies that came out over the festivals, there were a couple other ones that we didn't even talk about, like American Fiction and obviously The Holdovers and such, but for a while I just kept thinking to myself, I know Nolan has a shot at winning director, but do I truly think Oppenheimer can win picture as well? And I just think that I was just so hesitant because it didn't have this whole festival run. All it had was just the summer to build up momentum. But I think because of the strikes, because of, not a whole lot of big movies coming out except for Poor Things and maybe Maestro. But outside of that, there wasn't really much there that I could be like, oh, this film's going to win Best Picture. I couldn't. And I tried for a while predicting American Fiction to win the Best Picture prize because it won that TIFF audience prize alone. And I'm like, okay, so it's not really picking up much momentum, and seeing all these BAFTA long list and Oscar short list and such. And I'm like, Oppenheimer's performed pretty much everywhere really well, and almost to a certain degree, Everything Ever All at Once did last year. So there was a lot that goes into it, but as far as the acting categories, why I can't really say confidently, except for maybe one or two of them, why they're locks right now is because I learned my lesson last year that Austin Butler won the Globe and he won BAFTA, and I thought, okay, well that's clearly sealed the deal. He's got a Best Picture nomination, unlike Fraser. But I keep thinking back, Fraser, while he didn't win, Golden Globe and BAFTA, he won Critics' Choice, which was enough, and he also won SAG, which was the final precursor of the main televised awards. And this year we have SAG as well too. So yes, I think it's possible Cillian Murphy can easily win SAG. It's possible. But I also think there's still a chance for Cooper to win SAG. And if he does win SAG, I think he's going to win the Oscar. So that's why
I think the biggest thing to your point,
yeah, go ahead,
is people forget Bradley Cooper owned the 2010s.
Yeah.
He owned the whole he started in 2012 with Silver Linings Playbook. He didn't win. He lost. By the way, he lost to Daniel Day-Lewis for Lincoln. So I'm not mad.
No one was going to beat him.
No one was going to beat him. Okay.
No.
He gets American Sniper
and American Hustle.
Year. Okay, loses that year. Okay.
Yeah.
2014 or 15, he gets American Hustle, loses that.
Yeah.
And then he comes back in 2018 with A Star Is Born.
Yeah.
So
and he lost
been nominated 4 times
in the acting categories alone.
In the acting as a best actor, and he's lost every single time.
Yeah.
Now, there's another person that he's been nominated, 8 or 9 times, and he finally ended up winning in 2015 for The Revenant. And I'm talking about Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, I think it was his
nominated time after time after time after time, and they finally gave him the Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, again, I want to sort of keep my expectations lowered a bit because I learned it the hard. First off, I learned it the hard way with Rami Malek.
Yeah, but I mean,
but also
but see, to your point though, okay, biopics had been all the rage.
Yeah.
We had been going through a stretch of biopics for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it took Denzel a long time to win too. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he won his first for Glory, and then he won his
Yeah, but
second
that was
one
supporting.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was
not that it makes a
supporting.
difference, but
Yeah.
I mean, when we're talking about acting, no, I agree with you.
And there's a completely like different circumstances to why he won
Yeah.
for Training Day. So
Oh yeah. So that all being said, you look at the fad, if you will, right around Hollywood at that time, and it was all about biopics. Look at Gary Oldman for The Darkest Hour, Raleigh Malek for,
Bohemian
Rhapsody.
Rhapsody.
You had so many others. Not Jessica Chastain. Well, Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Funny enough,
you had a couple of other ones.
Yeah, funny enough, someone actually mentioned to me that Chastain also lost Golden Globe and ended up winning Critics' Choice and SAG, and went on to win the Oscar. So
There's so many different things, and it's a year by year thing. It's number one is it's the narrative. Number two, it's really how is the film. I hate to say this, but this is true to a certain extent. How did it perform? Oppenheimer made nearly $1 billion. Now, Barbie made over $1 billion. You say, well, what's the difference? Okay, there is okay, but there is a little bit of that there. Then you have the politics of it. Okay, who is backing what? You have Warner Brothers backing Barbie. You've got Netflix backing Maestro. There's so many different balls up in the air juggling, and every single year it's different. And so so it's going to be a very interesting race, when you have one, and by the way, that kind of takes away from the luster of it, right? If one guy, if Cooper or Cillian Murphy just wins all these awards, it's kind of okay, why am I going to watch? I know he's going to win, Yeah. But if you have a couple of guys jockeying for position and awards, like last year with Austin Butler winning the Globe and, Fraser winning the Critics' Choice, it's like, what's going on here? So that made the opening of that envelope that night very interesting.
Yeah, and I think also a big sign as to what made Fraser win the what told us like Fraser was winning the Oscar was The Whale also won makeup too. And that was the moment right then and there I thought, "Oh shit, we're going to get a completely different outcome." And honestly, I was not prepared for this. And I still think right now Maestro is still winning makeup. Like that is the front runner and he's going to win. Nothing's going to beat it.
That would be the upset.
Yeah.
If that didn't win makeup, that would be the upset.
Then yeah, and so yeah, I just so we'll see what happens with the Oscars. And I'm gonna keep an eye out on seeing how Netflix is gonna campaign for Maestro, like what kind of tactics they're gonna try to do to get it. Because maybe the issue of that being late to Golden Globe voters screening, screen wise, maybe that could have hurt Cooper's chances, or maybe it was a sign of Cillian's just going to win this the whole way through. I still do. I will say this before we close off or sign off pretty soon. I still am not buying Giamatti as a lead actor winner. I don't care how many think pieces I see out there. That performance does not feel like the kind of performance they would go for, especially when you have two biopic performances there. And I just don't. I don't know. I just don't see Giamatti as a like potential like upsetter. I do think if we're just looking at like what won televised awards, sure, it's between Murphy and Giamatti. But I had a feeling like I did last year where I just think to myself, I think this race might be down to Murphy and Cooper. And last year I even said too, I had a feeling the race was going to be between Fraser and Butler. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's always a very interesting. And that's the thing. You can never really tell from one year to the next. It's just it's a really impossibility. So, but okay, so that is the Golden Globes wrap-up show. By the way, guys, I know we only covered a small segment of it, but those were the big big stories. Couple of things here before we get out of here. First and foremost, tomorrow you guys are going to be getting another retrospective. So, quiz show. He hasn't seen it yet. Sit down and watch it.
I will soon, not tonight.
I
It's
know
like
I know
12:30 in the morning. Are you
no,
kidding?
I
I'm not
know
watching it now.
I know, obviously. But when you get a chance, put this at the top of your list. This has been
Yeah.
out for 30 years. It was a fantastic movie by Robert Redford. And if you really, I know you're not probably the biggest game show people or a game fan, but go back and watch if you do the backstory, go back and read the backstory of it.
Hmm.
Because game shows have been around for 30, 40, 50 years of all kinds, of all skill levels and everything else. This really kicked things off, but really was a lot of things happen. And Redford did it fantastic. And 21 was the show was based off of. And it was a really, really well made movie. It really was. So you guys are going to be getting quiz show tomorrow. And so that is going to. Um, do you guys think that movies that I'll bring Matt back in for this? Do you think that movies that debut on? Do you think that movies that debut on streaming only have a hard time winning these awards to movies that are theatrical? No, that is a choice. Okay, that is a choice that, and I'm gonna, all you got to do is look at somebody like Netflix, and this is why I'll never pay for Netflix, because all you got to do is take a look at last year. Okay, All Quiet on the Western Front ended up winning what, 5 Oscars? So that being
4.
said, 4 Oscars.
Yeah.
Four Oscars. That was a excuse me. That was a film that was only, and yes, it did go out to some theaters, but
One of which I actually went to go see Maestro in.
So Netflix is one of those companies that, I mean, look at Glass Onion. I'm not saying that had any Oscar potential or anything else.
That's how an adapted screenplay.
Yeah, but the point is, Netflix loves to put something in for a certain amount of time and then take it out because they're all about the subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
They could. You look at what Knives Out did. Okay, Knives Out was huge. It made $340 million. They just didn't want the money. They want the memberships because they want to keep you. They want to get their hooks in you. So
Mm-hmm.
you do that. So to your point, do you think it's harder? No, absolutely not. Because if they wanted, these streamers could look at Air, and I was bringing up Air earlier. $60 million film by Amazon. Guess what? It made its money back, and it came out the same week as a movie that made another $1 billion film that made over $1 billion in Super Mario. Now, it was never going to make that much money, but it's a simple premise. The biggest thing we have to do in Hollywood is increase the theatrical window. I think it should be, instead of 45, I think it should be 60 days. But that being said, that way they're more accessible. These films can actually stay in theaters longer, and the quick turnaround is just hurting them. But movies like Air and Killers of the Flower Moon and Maestro and everything else, they can make a lot of money. Okay, they can make it on both the theatrical side, and they can make it in streaming. So it's to your point. The last thing I'll say is this: the answer to your question is it's a choice.
Yeah, and also too, Maestro was considered. It was going to be considered for awards prospects, anyways. It was not going to make any kind of money back, especially on a film that was like, I think, just shy of $90 million for its budget. So,
I mean, but that's the thing. They just want to get it in there for a week or two, and they want you to subscribe. So if you don't make it, you want to go and get it. So that's the answer to that question. But as I said, guys, we are going to get you guys are going to get a quiz show tomorrow, and it's going to be a fantastic. You guys are going to love it. I had so much fun recording this. I had so much fun talking about it. I'm a game show enthusiast, and when you watch this, you'll really get that. So you guys are going to be getting quiz show tomorrow, and then we're going to start the streams on Wednesday. Okay. And then on Friday, you guys are going to be getting another retrospective. And I think Clear and Present Danger might be that next one. I'll have to look. Anyways, but you're definitely going to be getting one of these. And then, but so the other thing is this, and Deadpool, you're a loyal member and you know all about this. So, but to everybody out there that is, you have a great night as well. Um, but to everybody else that's out there, that's by the way, thank you for staying all the way to the end. But if you really want to help, okay, I do have a membership page. I've made it extremely cheap for everybody to join. Right now, it is zero. It is free to join. But beyond that, it's $3 a month to start, and it goes all the way up to $10. And that's the thing. I'm trying to get this out to as many people as I can, and I'm trying to, I want to make the absolute best content for you guys, and that's not only doing these shows, but bring people like Matthew on and retrospectives, and I have a couple of interviews lined up. I can't wait for you guys to see and talk about, and all of that stuff. And the only way that this is going to be able for me to continue this is you guys helping me out. Now, Dadpool, as I said, is a loyal member, and he just signed up for an unbelievable 6 months. Once again, thank you, sir. Um, that being said, guys, it's some of this is less than a gallon of gasoline, or a little bit more than a gallon of gasoline. And what you're doing is you're helping me out in the grand scheme of things. Um, and I'm on Twitter right now. So look, even if you don't want to join monetarily, just hit that like and subscribe button. That does more than you'll ever know because it gets out to everybody, and that's my goal. My goal, as I said earlier, that in one of these videos, is that I'm trying to hit 2,000 subscribers. Okay, and my goal is to get between 20 to 30 paid memberships for 2024. And then we're going to just keep going from there. So hashtag road to 2000. But yeah, I can't do it without your help. So consider doing that. But nonetheless, I do want to thank Matthew for coming on because he always has the insight, whether it's the Globes or the Oscars or the BAFTAs or anything else. And the next award show, which I'm not sure what it is. I'll find out. But one of the next award shows will definitely have him back on. He's definitely coming back on in March. Don't worry about that. And so we'll have him back on for the Oscars and everything else. So yeah, that's all I have for tonight. And Matthew, thank you again for coming on. And we are going to see you later. Enjoy the video tomorrow. And definitely, so one of the last things he says here is, I agree with Matt on everything except fast sex. Nice. But so I'll see you. I'll actually see you on Wednesday because you'll get that on Monday, and then either Tuesday or Wednesday we'll do the first stream. So he's Matthew Anderson. I'm David Steele. This has been the Golden Globe wrap-up show. This has been Real Talks, and the three things I always tell people: take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and be good to each other. And I will see everybody later. So have a good night.